Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. This is Kerry Lutz, and it's time for another Triple Lutz report. So we got these stellar, absolutely beautiful payroll report on Friday. Interestingly enough, gold went up. I'm not quite sure what that means, but to me, perhaps the insiders are now buying. And according to this report, there was an increase of 163,000 new jobs formed. That followed a revised 64,000 gain in June, which of course was less than was originally reported. Now look, these numbers are fraudulent, they are false, they're fake. This is a survey, all right? And the thing about surveys is that you can manipulate the outcome of a survey depending upon who you want to go out there and question. And this thing also is seasonally adjusted, and there's a birth-death index for supposedly new businesses being formed, mostly small businesses. In theory, those small businesses are hiring people. So in reality, those two adjustments alone come to over 400,000 jobs. But the reality is much worse than this, because even under this generous index, unemployment still went up to 8.3%. But if you've been listening here, if you look at shadowstats.com, look any place, you find out that these statistics are bogus. These are probably designed to attempt to affect the election, but they're not going to work, because if you're living in the United States and you don't live in a bubble, if you're not in a hospital and allergic to all bacteria and viruses, and they don't have you in a plastic bubble and cut off from all media, then you know people who are out of work, whose businesses have gone bust, who are on food stamps, who've had their houses foreclosed upon, who you've watched and seen their unemployment benefits expire. These people are in dire straits. So the administration, the Labor Department, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they can put out whatever number they please. But you know, and I know, that this number is fraudulent. And pretty soon we're going to start to see more layoffs occurring. This year is shaping up to be an awful year economically. And this is why you need to be ready. You need to be prepared. If you've got a secure job with an employer that has to stick around, whether it's public or private, then great. You should really be appreciative of that, because so many aren't in that situation. But you should be attempting at this point, if you can, if you're paying a high interest rate on your home, you want to think about refinancing, getting these below 4% interest rates. If you can do it interest only for a period of time, and you'll be able to save money and reinvest the proceeds in precious metals, probably not a bad idea either. But understand, I'm not a financial analyst. I don't want them coming after me saying I've given you personal financial advice. These are things that I would be looking to do were I in your position. One of the large banks has a LIBOR rate mortgage. Now, before you laugh, before you start saying, well, what good is a LIBOR rate mortgage because LIBOR is fixed? Well, I'll tell you what good a LIBOR rate mortgage is. The 1 month LIBOR rate is 0.25%. I think they add on a margin of another 0.25%. And understand, if interest rates go up, you can get killed on this thing. But in the meantime, you'd be paying next to nothing in interest. And I didn't have the guts to take this out 7 years ago. Well, maybe it was longer when I purchased my home. But had I done it and had this LIBOR rate mortgage paying interest only, I would have so much more money in the bank right now. Forget it. It was totally worth doing. I made the mistake. Would I switch to it now? I'm not sure, but it's damn well tempting. The key is lower your expenses, even if you have a mortgage. Think about an adjustable for a 5 or 7 year period, because the money that you save now for when interest rates eventually go through the roof, you can invest in something with value. If it was me, I'd be buying as much gold and silver with it that I possibly could. But you can be saving 20, 30, 50% off of what you're paying right now. And the government is offering unbelievable deals to get you refinanced to pretty much try to save the banking sector. Now, the other alternative that people ask me all the time is, should I just stop paying my mortgage? And the answer there is much more complicated, and I don't want to give you legal advice. You need to talk to an attorney and an accountant, because you don't want to get yourself into trouble. But let's just give a hypothetical example. You've got a $300,000 mortgage on a piece of property that is worth $180,000. And in a lot of places in the country, this isn't too extreme. You see it, people are underwater all over the place, especially in California, Arizona, and Nevada. Those 3 places, but Florida as well. All over the place, because you've had tremendous drops in value. If you're paying a couple thousand, $2,000-3,000 a month in debt service, taxes, insurance for the home, and you're $100,000 underwater, you got to be waking up every morning, looking at yourself in the mirror, saying, I must be crazy. Here, I have hardly enough money to feed my family, to pay $4 a gallon gasoline, to put it in my car, and I'm paying the bank, and I'm paying real estate taxes and insurance on something that, unless there's hyperinflation or major inflation, is never going to have any value to myself and my family. Every month that I pay that mortgage, I am hurting my family's financial position. And this applies even if you have a job. Look, you might be paying 40% of your income right now or more in debt service, in house-related costs. The bank comes after you, and assuming they can't get any bank accounts or other assets, that most of your assets are in exempt IRA accounts or retirement accounts, the most they could take from your income is 10% per annum. All right? So if you're making $50,000 now, the most they can get is $5,000. However, your total housing expenses are going to be 25 to 40%. So there's a great savings until they finally can throw you out of your house. And the dirty secret is they often pay homeowners $5,000, $10,000, even more, to leave peaceably and not destroy the place so that they can resell it. The other thing is, if you stop paying your mortgage and your housing expenses, your credit report, your credit rating is going to take a hit. Now, for some people, that's important. For others, it's not. But that's something you need to think about. But when you stop paying your mortgage, it might make your bank more willing, or whomever holds the mortgage on it, which is another story, they might be much more willing to renegotiate, to modify your mortgage downward. And one person I knew, he went bankrupt and discharged his obligation, meaning he didn't have to pay his mortgage anymore, totally freed up in bankruptcy. The bank came back to him, cut the principal by about a third, and made it a 30-year mortgage, rather a 40-year mortgage, where he would be paying 2% interest. It got to the point where he decided it was better to take the modification, even though he was no longer on the hook for the mortgage, better to take the modification because he couldn't rent that house as cheap as he could own it with the 2% mortgage, even with the property taxes and repairs. Once you factored in the tax benefits, he was so far ahead, it was absurd. So look, I'm not telling you don't pay your mortgage. I'm not telling you it's a good idea. I'm telling you that it could be an option along with refinancing under generous terms because, look, the bank doesn't want the house back, okay? They've got more than they know what to do with, especially if you live in Nevada where 80% of all mortgages are underwater. You live in California, you live in Arizona, you live in Florida, you live in Michigan. The bank doesn't want the house back. So they're willing to treat you on very favorable terms. And if they're not, you stay there till they foreclose and then you walk away. It's really that simple. I mean, I read a story this week that shocked me, but it shouldn't. Being an attorney, I'm supposed to be beyond being shocked. But there were squatters in a house and the rightful owners were evicting them and they had 48 hours to get out. And then one of the couple went bankrupt. And guess what happens then? Automatic stay, no eviction. Then you have to go back to court, make a motion for relief from the stay so that you can carry on your eviction. Probably going to take another month or two. The wife went bankrupt first. You know the husband's going to go bankrupt the second his wife's case gets tossed. It's a given. Now, I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not telling you to not obey or honor the law because I think everybody should. However, there are situations where no one should expect you to commit financial suicide. That's not fair. That's not right either. And if you're barely making ends meet and your bank's not cutting you any deals, you're not getting a bailout from the Federal Reserve. There is no TARP for homeowners. You're not getting it. So you might as well cut the best deal you can. And if that means not paying your mortgage for a while, to force the bank into either a modification or force them to foreclosure, as long as you're willing to accept the circumstance, to accept the consequence that your credit rating is going to be shot, then that might very well be the way to go. All I suggest depends upon the state. Talk to your attorney, talk to your accountant, and if you have a financial advisor, talk to them as well. Make sure that you don't have a lot of assets hanging around that could make the whole thing a big mistake. That's my only suggestion. You need to look closely, carefully at this because this is very important. You know, I know, just like the unemployment rate is cooked, so are the economic statistics. It's not getting better. It appears to be getting worse. It's hard to judge how much worse it's getting. It might get a lot worse. It might just stay this way for 10 years. As long as the government is blocking reallocation of capital, as long as the government is regulating us to the point where we don't want to start businesses, why would you want to start a business? Why would you want to hire employees when you become a target instantaneously? You only hire an employee if that's your only option. Otherwise, you outsource. You do everything you can to stop from adding the next employee. This is a direct result of our legal system, our government's policies, tax policies, and anti-entrepreneurial attitudes that permeate every level of government. That's why the jobs aren't being formed. Also because there is no economic growth. The government is stopping it all because, hey, the private sector is doing just fine. You didn't build it anyway, so don't worry about it. The government will take care of you. They'll give you food stamps. They'll allow you to go on disability after your unemployment benefits expire. The government's got you covered. So why bother working? Why bother taking a risk? Why pay your mortgage? Why be a productive member of society? All the incentives are against it. But that's only going to go on for so long. Once we have the next phase of the crash, which Peter Schiff is a big believer in, and I tend to agree with him because he's been right all along. Once that next part of the crash comes, you're not going to have the luxury of living off your fellow man, and your fellow man will not have the luxury of living off of you. It will be every man for his economic self-interest. interest, which is the way it's supposed to be, which is the way this country was founded, and which is the way we need it to go back to. This is Kerry Lutz, then another Triple Lutz Report, signing off.